Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. We're at a little bit of a different angle today, but that's because I am doing my full face project pan get ready with me. So if you want to see how I use all my project pan items, how I got this look today, stick around. Channel, I am coming to you fresh faced because I am going to be doing a get ready with me with my project pan items. It is early in the morning and we have a full day ahead of us, so you'll probably hear puppy dogs walking around. I have my coffee, but I'm going to try to get ready really quickly with you guys. So I do have all of my skincare on, and if I am a little bit overexposed, I have my Simple Human mirror down here to kind of, this is how I get ready every single day. But I have my wet sponge, and so my next step would be my primer. And so I do have my e.l.f. primer. I do 2 pumps of this. I got an air bubble, so we have this. I warm it up between my hands, and then I rub it in, and then I press it in. Now I have to be really careful to allow my sunscreen to soak in as much as possible before I put this in, or before I put this on, because it will pill. And so it almost kind of reactivates that sunscreen and I get a little bit of a white cast again. I am using a mineral sunscreen right now, so that makes sense. But overall, once it starts getting a little bit tacky, I do just press it in. I always keep a washcloth handy to wipe my hands off, and also I use that to wipe my brushes off as well. So I'm going to let this sink in for about 10-15 seconds, and then we'll go on to foundation. But actually, while I'm doing that, I'll get my foundation prepared. So I bought a little acrylic tray off of Amazon, and so I take my e.l.f. Halo Glow filter, and I basically dip in twice, and I take 2 swipes of that on the palette, and then I have my foundation, so we'll give this a shake, and then I mix that on the palette as well. So as far as amounts, that is about what we're looking like, and I just mix it together with my finger on my palette, and then I dot it around. My skin is behaving relatively well. I do have some dark marks that I am competing with that I can't get to go away, but really I'm not having a whole lot of active breakouts except for a few on my top lip. And so I put a little bit of my foundation on my sponge, and then we blend in. But automatically you guys can see the difference in the coverage on this foundation. It is absolutely stunning the way that this covers. So I do a first light layer of foundation, and I actually go in twice with foundation. And so I put my first layer on and I kind of let that set down while I do my eyes. So I am going to take my Painterly paint pot, get some on my finger, and prime my eyelids. I have my quad of shadows, and so I take a fluffy brush and I'm going to pick up that lid setting shade, tap out any creases, and then set that paint pot down. Do it to the other side. Alrighty, so I have my lids set down, so now we're going to go in with some eyeshadow, and I am going to use my single shadow palette that is in my deck of panning. And let me actually look at my journal to see what shades I still need to use. Let's do a green and gold look with this today. And so basically this row right here is what we're going to be looking at. So let me go ahead and set down some mattes and some base shadows, and then we'll pop some greens and golds on the lid. So I think I think I want to go in with this neutral shade right here. And I'm pretty sure that this is Creme Brûlée from Makeup Geek. And so it's just a nice light brown shade. And I build that up in my crease. Since this is a lighter shade, I can be a little bit sloppy with it, just getting some definition. So I do have some mattes down here that I still need to use. So I'm going to go into this deeper brown, and this is a Sydney Grace shadow. These are very pigmented, almost to the point where I feel like sometimes they are too pigmented and a little bit hard to blend, but I'm just kind of setting down some color difference out here in the outer V. Again, I'm not too worried about being sloppy because when I come back in with my second layer of foundation and also with my concealer, I can clean up this right here and kind of bring it back up. But really, I like to kind of be a little bit sloppy with my blending just so that I can clean it up later. Going back in with Creme Brûlée just to kind of blend some of that out. All right, I am happy with that kind of mattes that we have going, and so I think I need to use, what shades? This third one in here, and then these golds down here. So I think I'm going to do like a gold to green look, but first, since I do have oily lids, I do use a glitter primer for all of my shimmer shadows, and that's just to help them stay and prevent them from creasing. So I put a little bit between my fingers and I get that on the lid. All right, now we're ready for some shimmers. So let me actually go in with the green first, and this is Cadet from Sydney Grace. And so this is what we're looking like, and I'm just going to start that from about the middle out. That is a beautiful shade. And then the gold, I think I'm going to go with my Sydney Grace gold, and so this is Magic Act, and so I'll just take that on my finger. Beautiful shades. And we'll put that in the inner corner. And again, I'm not worried about being sloppy down at the bottom because all of that will end up being covered. I'm going in with a smaller brush here back into that gold just so I can really get that in to that inner corner. Take that same brush and we'll go back into Cadet, and I'm going to bring that into my crease a little bit. I don't mind having shimmers in my crease. Because I don't have a whole lot of lid space, I actually do like taking my shimmers a little bit higher just so that you can see them while my eyes are open. So going back in with that blending brush, I'm not putting anything else onto this brush, and I'm just going to blend everything out into the crease. I'm going to go back into my quad because I really enjoy putting this shade on my lower lash line. I have like a flatter, fluffy brush, and I'm just going to go in there and put this on the lower lash line. Now I like doing this because it almost prevents me from taking my concealer too far up underneath my eyes, and it kind of gives me some color under there where the majority of my wrinkles are, so that my concealer doesn't go all the way up. Now when I do put on my concealer, I'll have to go back in and touch back up that lower lash line shade, but for right now the eyes are where they need to be, and so I'm going to go ahead and pick this dog hair off my face. I swear it's an occupational hazard. I am going to take and mark off the shades that I ended up using today. So those are 2 shades off of the, actually 3 shades because we used that dark matte. So 3 more shades off of a No Pan Left Behind for that palette. And we're going to go ahead and use the rest of what's on my palette here, and we're going to do our second layer of foundation. And this just takes down even more of that redness that is naturally in my skin. So at this point here, I do go into my concealer. So right now I'm using the NARS Soft Matte. And so I just take a little bit on my fingers and I rub it in the areas that not only do I want to lighten, but I want a little bit of extra coverage. Now this stuff goes a really long way. I usually have a lot of scarring and redness in my cheeks right here, since this is where I get the majority of my hormonal acne. And then I do rub a little bit of this concealer out here, but below my eyeshadow, because I want to be able to control how far up I take this concealer. And I just take the tip of my sponge and we're going to blend all of this out. I do have a lot of redness around my nose, and so I make sure to get all of that covered with some concealer. And see, here is where I can kind of be precise and I can bring that eyeshadow up and clean it up with the concealer. So we are looking good with our base, and I look like Uncle Fester at this point, and that's where I need to add more color and contour back into my face. So I'm going in with my Wet n Wild contour stick, and so I basically follow my cheekbone. So this is the top of my cheekbone. Since I don't want to start too low, I start at my cheekbone. And using that same side of my sponge, I start to blend that out and back. And I bring it down a little bit onto my cheek, but I try not to go below that hollow of my cheek and cheekbone. So for the rest of my face, I take my stick and I just get my sponge in there and I get my forehead. Do a little bit on the sides of my nose. For my neck and jawline, I do go a little bit underneath the jaw and then down below my chin, and I blend down. Because I don't want you to be able to see that line on my jaw, but I want to create a shadow down there. All right, now hopefully we have a little bit more life back into the face. Next I go in with Creme blush, and I do have, I ended up wiping out some of my NARS Velvet Lip Glide onto my Stila blush, and so basically I am just going to mix these together, and then that is going to be my blush shade for the day. I don't like putting things on with my fingers. I feel like it actually leaves my fingerprints on my face. And so again, I take that piece of my sponge, I dip it into the product, and this is gonna look scary at first, but you just keep blending. Because again, look at how pigmented that gets, but just keep blending. And really, I like a blushy look, and so I take it up onto my temple and make sure to get it back into my hairline as well. And that gives me the look that I want. And it can look a little bit scary now because, and I take it across the bridge of my nose, it can look scary now because I do powder my whole face, and so the powder is going to kind of knock down some of this color as well. Now something that I like to do is take a little bit of blush and just put it at the top of my forehead and at the base of my chin. And this just adds that kind of sun-kissed look that I love. And there's no extra product on the back of the sponge. I'm just going around my face and blending all of the edges. And so that kind of gives me that seamless blend where this color looks like it's actually coming from my face and not necessarily coming from the products. So at this point, I like to do my brows, and mainly because I do have a full coverage foundation on. So if I use the spoolie and comb up my brows, it leaves marks in the foundation. It actually like scrapes the foundation away. And so I like to be able to go back over that and smooth that back down after I do my brows. So I'm going to go ahead and start at the base here and just add some color. So that's the difference with one brow done and one not. So my brows are my natural hair color, so you can see how much I have to darken them to match my hair that I dye. So I'm not, I'll dye my eyebrows from time to time, but it's not something that I'm going to do all the time. It doesn't bother me to just fill my brows in. All right, so we have brows, and because some of that foundation was disturbed by the spoolie, I just go back over and smooth all of that back out. So at this point now, we are going to move on to powder. And so I do have another one of my loose powder mixes, and I have a triangle puff. And so I like to have quite a bit of powder on there. And basically what I'll do is I'll go back in with my sponge tip and I almost forgot my corrector. So I was able to melt this back down and get it flat again. And so I'm just going to pick some up on my finger and we're just going to go right in there. Can't believe I almost forgot the corrector. And using my same sponge, I'll go ahead and just tap that corrector out. Already it's brightened that area. And while I'm doing that, I'm tapping out any other creases. And what I'll do is I dip my triangle puff in the powder, and then I take the cap and I tap into the cap. And that kind of gets some of the powder off so that I'm not necessarily baking. My objective is not to bake underneath my eyes, it is just to set down the concealer. Since I am oily and I do put a lot of products on my face, I do set the rest of my face, and so I am going to go ahead and tap out my smile lines, any of my forehead wrinkles, and then we'll set the rest of the face. I do set the rest of my face very liberally, and so again, picking up powder. This still has the peach smell, and it is just glorious. Now that my face is nice and matte, I'm going to take my e.l.f. Wow Brow and I'm going to add a little bit more color and fiber to my brow. Because again, some of that powder does take down the color of the pencil. I forgot to put something on my lips and I'm wondering why my lips are so dry. So I'm going to take the Too Faced Hangover RX in Banana. And we're just going to put some moisture on those lips. So from here, I go into powder bronzer. And I do use a smaller brush for this step. I like a more pinpointed bronzer, and I really don't feel like I have that big of a face. And so while I do like if I'm doing a lighter face of makeup, I'll use a fluffier brush and kind of give myself that like sun-swept look. But really, if I'm doing a full face, I want something more targeted. So I swirl my brush in my bronzer, and then I start in that same place on my cheekbone and get some color built up. I do take my bronzer down my neck. My neck and chest get very red, and so I try to even that out a little bit with bronzer. And with me going over my powdered face with this brush, I am brushing off any excess powder that was not soaked up to set my foundation. Now I'm going to go in with blush, and my favorite blush brush is this like $1.99 one from Wet n Wild, and I am going to use my Tarte blush in Party. And when I talk about being able to scrub my brush into this, it is literally me scrubbing my brush. Because I did repress this, it is a little bit looser than before, but when this blush was brand new, they're so tightly packed that you can just scrub your brush into them. And so again, I like to bring my blush down onto my cheek, kind of into my eyebrow and back. And so I don't set my eyebrows down with gel yet, because you can see that I'm kind of using that space to blend my blush. So we'll do the other side. Again, I start at the temple because that's where I want the majority of my color, and then I bring it down onto my cheek. I do a little tap, tap, tap across my nose, a little bit up here, a little bit down here, and we have blush. I also say in my videos that I like to take my blush shade and connect it with my eye look. This is my same blending pencil, or my blending brush. I'm just cleaning it off on the washcloth on my lap, and I basically tap into my blush, and I take just the outer V and blend it up into that blush. So since we're at this point, we can go ahead and go back in with my quad, and we're going to redefine that lower lash line. Putting on that powder, I kind of lose some of the darkness in my outer V, and so this allows me to kind of, again, redefine that shape by pushing up towards the tail of my brow and really getting that color under there. Let's go ahead and do liquid liner. So I am trying to use up the Clinique Brown liquid liner this year. This is a brush tip. I do really enjoy this liner, but I'm just trying to tie it into some more looks. And really, I just line my lash line. I don't want to do a wing today. We're just going to hit that lash line. And then I did pick up a new brown eyeliner from the Sephora brand, and I'm just going to use that to tightline. And then to bring some life to the inner rim, I have this Makeup Geek liner. It's like a nude liner. They ended up sending this to me for free whenever I made orders. Again, when the company was going out of business, I think they were just trying to get stock out. And so I'm going to pull on my lid and put this on, and I'll come back because nobody wants to see that. Alrighty, so now we can, hi doggy footsteps. We can go on to, oh, and you guys have had dogs in the background this entire time. Why? My camera has been focusing on my dog this entire time. No, I need it to focus on me. I had to change and move some stuff around and kick the dogs out because my camera kept focusing on my dog's face behind me and making me blurry. But I think where we left off, I was about to do setting spray, and so I have my e.l.f. Dewy, and so we're just going to go ahead and spray this on. This allows me to kind of knock down all these powders and really set into my face. So the main thing that I do to set everything down is I take my sponge and I spray onto the flat side of the sponge, and then I press this in. And that really helps meld all those powders into my face. Next step is highlighter, and so I have my Tarte palette, and what I like to do first is take a very tiny brush, and I'm going to go into the most intense shade here, and we're going to do inner corner. Then I take a little bit of a pointier shade or pointier brush. I go into that same shade, and what I like to do is connect everything. So I connect that inner corner with my lid shade, and also I like to bring this up into the crease to just bring light to that area. I'm going to use the same brush and do the more subtle shade, and we're going to go under the brow bone. And I do all of this prior to setting my eyebrows also because, again, I am messing with my eyebrows and getting that highlighter kind of incorporated up there, and so I don't want to set my brows down yet. Then I go in with a regular highlighting brush, and I'm going to go ahead and use both of those shades together. And I like to kind of get the brush and scrub that highlight into the skin, and I don't like to just do a stripe. I want to kind of really work it in so it looks like it's coming from below everything rather than sitting on top. We'll do a little bit on the nose, a little bit on the forehead, Cupid's bow, and chin. It's the same thing with the highlight where I can connect that highlight underneath the brow to the highlight on the temple. So we are now all highlighted, and now I can go in with brow gel. And so I have an ABH brow gel. This is brand spanking new. This is my first time using it. I did use up my other brow gel. So this has a little bit of a bigger spoolie, but again, I have pretty bushy brows, so I can handle it. Because I do have longer brow hairs and bushier brows, I really want a product that is going to set them down and hold them in place. Get some of those flyaways out. So now that the brows are tamed, we're going to move on to mascara. I have my eyelash curler. This one's just from Tweezerman. So we're going to go ahead and curl the lashes. I like to pulse a little bit at the root of the lash and then move about halfway up the lash and pulse there to really get a good curl. I have a sample of the Gucci mascara and I used it yesterday and I'm actually really liking it. I like this style of brush that's kind of the rubber bristle that really gets in there and separates the lashes. And I feel like the wand is not too big that I can actually get in there and get every lash. Now, I did get a little bit of mascara. I always do. So if you ever get mascara up on your lid or right there that I just got it down there, let it dry. Don't touch it. Leave it alone. Just let it dry. I feel like even with one coat, this adds amazing length, and because I really wiggle it at the base of my lashes, I get the volume that I want. And so we'll just do a little bit on the lower lashes. Now we're going to do lips. I still have that mascara on, but I'm going to let it dry and we'll flake it off after we're done with lips. But I have my lip liner in another round, so we'll just line the lips. I do like to take a little domed brush and just kind of blend that lip line in. I feel like when you have more full coverage products, it really can look, what's the right word, like stark and striking to have a lip line that is just kind of like hanging out there on its own. So I like to blend that in. We have lipstick. Then we're going to go back and manage this mascara that got unruly. And I just have a spoolie and I am gently flaking that off. I'll go back in with my little highlighter brush and just kind of blend some of that out. And we are done. So I got my headband off and I straightened my hair last night, and so we are nice and straight. Let me show you guys how I use my hairline powder, since that is technically part of my project pan. So I have this big fluffy brush. This is a Sephora eye brush, but really, whose eye can fit that? And so I basically tap in and then I tap along the hairline. So we'll do my part. And then really, here is where I have the majority of where you can see my natural color and also just my scalp coming through. And so this makes your hair look a little bit fuller and hopefully can get me to go a little bit further between having to do touch-ups. All right, so we have my hairline powder in there, and actually that looks so much better. So this is how I get my everyday look with my project pan items. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching me put my makeup on this morning. I know it seems like a lot of steps and a lot of layers, but this is how I feel comfortable in my own skin. This is how I feel comfortable with what's going on in my face. I know that the lights wash out a lot of kind of like dark spots and redness and scars, and so my skin probably looks better on camera than it looks to me in this 5 times magnified mirror. But I hope that you enjoyed seeing me use all of my project pan items. I hope that you will stick around and subscribe, like the video if you want to see more get readies with me. Let me know if there's any palettes that you would like to see me do looks with. I really appreciate you guys being here, and I'll see you in my next one.